Diction is one of the most important concepts in style analysis because how we choose our words and which words we choose to be persuasive is fundamental to everything else. All right. So let's do this through the diction of Star Wars. Okay. So diction is just a fancy word for word choice, right? Choosing your words carefully is the beginning of style. Several types of words strung together in a particular order is syntax. Several more is the beginnings of modes and tones and attitudes and devices and all that kind of stuff. So diction is at the base of all of the other stylistic choices that you could make. All right, so let's start with the concept of lead. The College Board, in its infinite wisdom, has selected this acronym to help you analyze diction, so you might as well know it. So let's do what the College Board recommends. Let's start with high formal elevated diction, right? You can't just say people use diction. You actually have to describe the diction because everybody uses diction. Everybody chooses words. You need an adjective in front of that word diction. So if someone was to use high formal or elevated diction, it would sound something like this, right? So remember this scene where, Darth Vader says, "Luke, I'm your father." Let's try to elevate the language in that particular scene. So look at this example. "Luke, based on your lineage, it behooves you to follow my lead and align yourself with the dark faction of the Force. Incidentally, I am your father. Together, we can enact a coup d'etat against the current emperor and institute a powerful hereditary monarchy." Throwing a lot of big words out there, keeping it highfalutin. And instead of saying no, Luke says nay, right? So that's high formal elevated diction. Let's contrast it with low informal diction, okay? "Luke, I'm your daddy. Join the dark side. We can kill the emperor and take over," right? That is in stark contrast to high, right, formal diction. And Luke says, "Bite me," right? So again, very low, very vulgar, very informal, not highfalutin language, all right? So that's the first two parts of the acronym LEAD, right? And then we have abstract vague language, right? Abstract vague diction. It's when you're using your words to be less specific. So, "Luke, I am actually closely related to you. If you can assist me, you can reap the benefits." Notice how closely related, assist, benefits, all very vague, right? And Luke just says, "Wah," to show his displeasure, right? Not really saying no, kind of like a no, but kind of hedging there, okay? Now we could also be very specific, right? "Luke, I am literally your father. Join me and we can betray the emperor, kill him, and take over his position as ruler of the Galactic Empire, which he set up." So he lays out his plan here, being very specific, and here's Luke giving his emotional response. "I'm very surprised and upset." And if I was even more specific, I would have Luke say, "And no." Notice that you can have something that's high and formal, but also abstract and vague, or high and formal, but also very specific. You can't have high, formal, low, right? You can have low and abstract and vague. You could have low and specific. You can't have low and formal, okay? That's something else if you mix and match, and we might cover that, okay? Something can be abstract and vague, but it can't also be specific at the same time. It can become more specific as the essay or the speech goes on, but a single line or a single word choice can't be both vague and specific, okay? Let's move on. So part two, we could do low diction variations here, right? So here are three terms that we need to know, and that's jargon, colloquialism, and slang. They do show up on the AP multiple choice test occasionally. They're all types of low diction. Okay, so jargon, right, is a type of language that's developed out of a profession. When doctors speak in a very quick shorthand, right, like, "Oh, they're in the ICU, I need 4cc stat," right? That's jargon. That's not actually formal language. So here's an example of Admiral Akbar, right? It's a tactical pincer emboscado, man all battle stations. Tactical pincer emboscado is military jargon. Battle stations, military jargon, right? Colloquialism is like regional sayings or dialect, right? First example that comes to mind is the concept of soda. Some regions call it soda, some regions call it pop, some regions call every type of soda Coke, right? So it's kind of weird. It's just words or sayings that are used in a particular area. It's not really proper usage. So here's an Admiral Akbar. Hey y'all, it's a trap. We're gonna eat it. Get in your spots. I don't know. That's my like concept of Southern accents. You can tell I'm not from the South. Okay. All right. And then finally, it's slang. This is from video game slang. Oh man, they were camping. We're gonna get pwned. Get your game on. I mean, I think this is still used, but this is a type of slang. So using words like cool, dude, or FOMO, anything like that, slang, it's considered low diction. All right. Let's move on to the next one, which is the concept of objective language versus subjective language. This is not to be confused with abstract, vague, or specific, okay? So it's about the concept of verifiability. So objective language can be verified. It can be proved true or false. It often tends to be more specific, but they're not necessarily the same thing, right? So this is from the prequels, right? Anakin, you have the highest amount of midichlorians in your cells that we've ever seen. That's higher. That's a higher amount than Yoda's, right? So that's something that is measurable theoretically, even though that's not a real thing. This person in this story is saying like, look, you have a certain level, you have a number in your cells, and it is higher than this person's, count in their cells. That is verifiable. That is objective diction. That is objective language, right? Here's another one. This is from, the original Star Wars. I made the Kessel Run in under 12 parsecs. That's very specific, right? This person is giving a fact. It's not a unit of time, but that of a parsec is not a unit of time, but that of distance, right? That's a very specific, verifiable definition. And then I equal Anakin Skywalker in the amount of midichlorians, right? That is also a number, so it hence verifiable. So let's look at those same scenes from the movies, but with subjective language. Subjective language is unverifiable. It's dependent on perspective, opinion, and it's more akin to feelings than facts, right? These tend to be more abstract and vague, though they're not necessarily the same thing, okay? Wow, the Force is really strong in you. How cool is that? Notice how that's different from you have the highest amount of midichlorians. That's higher than Yoda's. This is more vague, right? The Force is really strong with you. Okay, so then we have I'm the fastest smuggler this side of Tatooine, right? That is, subjective. I'm the fastest on the region. Maybe, you could argue it's verifiable, but it's pretty loose, right? Don't you think you're being a bit arrogant? You're a bit of a scoundrel. That's just like him insulting him. And then the Force is strong in me, right? The word strong isn't really verifiable. That's not a measurable thing. That's an opinion. So, all right, now let's get to the last part, which is the concept of slanting. Word choice can slant things either positive or negative, right? So when certain words have connotation, and ultimately this is probably the most important thing, a foundational thing that we need to know about style analysis. The words we choose have a positive or negative charge to them, mostly, right? So when you modify your word choice to have a positive charge or a negative charge, you are now trying to take part in that persuasive act, right? So in the examples that I'm going to be showing you here, the words that are in red are specifically chosen to be more threatening or less threatening, right? So pay attention. So the words in red are slanting the situation or the topic, right, that's being discussed. So in this one, hostiles, notice how there are reports of hostiles on this planet. That is a negative charge, right? Here, this person's saying the same thing, right? But he's wrapping it in a different type of language, different word choice. Teddy bears, cute hoodies. The choice of detail is going to lend itself to a different choice of words. So those are going to put positive charges on that, creating a different motion or effect. Okay, let's take a look at this one. Rodents with sticks, right? It's a very, negative kind of diction. It's diminishing. Notice all three are reporting, hey, there's a life form that's been reported here, okay? And then, there's the actual Ewok itself. Two different ways, right? Alien bears with a spear. That's putting a spin on things, right? Alien bears is kind of a particular word choice that's relating it, making it more familiar to our experience. Same with the spear, okay? And then death incarnate. That's vaguer, that's like darker, that's like putting a more negative spin on it, okay? So in contrast to that, alien bears with a spear, that arguably still negative, but it's more positive than the other choice of words, death incarnate, okay? So that's the gist of word choice, okay? Pay attention to the words that people are using. Pay attention to the words that you see in an essay or the prompts, right? The details in the words that someone is using in a persuasive act is meant to spin things. It's meant to put a positive or negative charge, and that's supposed to arguably make the speaker more persuasive, okay? So, high five for learning. Have any questions? Ask me.